What happens is
Yeah.
you bring in a coach, he has a particular style of football, and he buys the players that suit his style of football. So he says, "Give me A, B, C, D." You buy it for him 5 months, the football doesn't work, you kick him out. Another coach comes and he says, "I want to play
I
this
need a
way,
new
so
set of players.
I need a new set of players." So by 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or even 10 years, you have a squad that is not quite clear
What they want to
they
do.
what they want to do, what their abilities are. There are some of the players that can suit counter-attacking football, but won't suit possession style football. So managers have to compromise. So you see Ashley Young is playing right back and things like that.
Hi guys, another episode of the Beer Parlor. Obviously, it's the end of the football season. There are lots of shifts in the football market, but even before the season ended, we've seen huge managers being let go. The manager search started way way early for the likes of Liverpool after Klopp announced his retirement. We also saw several other managers disagree with their clubs, Tuchel and Bayern Munich. Eventually, we saw Pochettino end his stint with Chelsea. And so we are here to discuss what is wrong in the managerial market. Why are managers all of a sudden leaving their clubs? What is the new trend? What are the things that clubs are looking out for in contemporary managerial roles? And why are we seeing some most unfamiliar names getting onto the biggest clubs in the world? To start off with this, obviously, the king of football, Erasmus, would do the discussion, do the intro, just give us a background as to why these trends have been seen. And then we would get into a few things around Chelsea, United, and also talk a little bit more about Bayern. So, yeah, Erasmus, why do you think we are seeing these rifts around managers and us seeing the most unpopular names come to the biggest clubs in the world?
Yeah, good morning, good evening to you wherever you're from. Um, I think we are in a very, it's not, people think it's a unique era. I don't think it is, but I think we're seeing phases in football, which I think comes around more often than not. But obviously, the
Okay.
conversation is always nuanced. Like,
Yeah.
um, I want to cast your mind back to a couple of years ago, during the Zidane era. Um,
Yeah.
even far back as the Pep era, where Pep was picked up from Barca Team B and then made head
Yeah.
coach. All of a sudden,
Yeah. True.
saw a huge trend in football where people like Ancelotti became obsolete to the extent that they went to Everton. I'm sure
Yeah.
that guy would delete that off his CV. But
Yeah. True.
that was the trend that came in. You saw Pirlo going to Juve with no CV at all, and that sort of thing came in vogue. And then some of them failed, some of them succeeded, but you just had sort of like a reset. You
Yeah.
saw coaches like Jurgen Klopp, Tuchel emerge, who were more on the front foot.
Very,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. But before that, people forget that there was an era after Mourinho became hugely successful, where he had coaches like, not to say Conte was inspired by Mourinho or anything, but the popularity of coaches like Conte, Massimiliano Allegri, even coaches like Mancini, who were more about
Yeah.
very effective on the counter attack. So it's never been a problem. I think it's a usual trend in football where people see a direction by which football is going and decide to adapt to that. That means that the kind of personnel that they begin to recruit becomes highly different, and that
Yeah.
means that those belonging to the old structure become a bit more obsolete. But I think this particular trend is inspired by one name and one name only, and his name is Pep Guardiola. In a way, he was responsible for the first one, but I think more and
Yeah.
more he's also responsible for this because the teams he has managed have become so dominant. Other clubs need to now sit back and say, do we want to continue with what we are doing? or do we want to do something different? And in doing something
Yeah.
different, do we want to buy into the trend where football is already going, where these guys are already going, and try and compete with them on that level, or we take a
Yeah.
radically different direction? And I think it's quite clear that taking a different direction doesn't work. You need to copy what the big guys are doing. And I think essentially that is what's happening because, as much as possible, the city model has been mentioned a lot. And just
Yeah.
like with all other things, they are the innovators, they are the early adopters, then those who come in late. I think when the model came about with Red Bull Group, they were hugely successful with it, but they were doing it on a very, very small level. You had teams like
Yeah.
Leipzig, which were coming and were creating these club structures or models, and they were very, very successful. For example, Red Bull was successful in creating feeder um, clubs all across Europe,
Yeah.
and in terms of you feeding that into their clubs in Germany, for example, where Leipzig became very, very, very successful moving into the Premier League. But no one had done it on a big scale. So
Yeah.
all the big clubs felt, yeah, we were protected. These clubs have a reason to innovate because they can't compete without innovating.
Compete. Yeah.
Yes. But then all of a sudden, you see a club like Man City with its massive resources begin to do the same thing. And it looks like the advantage it gives them is way ahead of everyone. And therefore, clubs need to
Yeah.
adapt. So I think that is the cause of the trend that's going. Obviously, in the discussion, we'll start analyzing maybe what this trend itself entails and what it
Yeah. Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually the next question I have for you, which is more on what exactly is this trend? What is this structure looking like, and why are clubs looking to remodel their own structures around this? But more importantly, how is that affecting coaching preferences within these clubs? For which reason we've seen certain coaching profiles all of a sudden instantly become non-appealing, and less convincing coaching profiles all of a sudden also become very, very appealing to these very club structures.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question because it's very easy to now say, "What, you don't want Tuchel anymore? Are you mad? He won
Yeah,
six
yeah,
champions. Yeah,
yeah,
like you don't want Mourinho anymore. He's a winner." Because today news came out that Mourinho has agreed a 2-year deal with Fenerbahce,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he continues to drift far. I mean, he
Far and far
still
away
says,
from the elite. Yeah,
yeah, he still says that he thinks he has the qualities to coach for elite teams, but it's quite clear that he can no longer coach in England, no
I
longer.
don't think he. I don't. Maybe the phrasing is not that he can't. Is that the clubs don't want him,
No,
right?
like I think also you look at Mourinho and you think, what are the realistic jobs he'll take? And yeah, Chelsea, Man United, but he's burnt bridges over there. He's not going to move to
Yeah,
City. Apart
yeah,
from
yeah,
these
yeah,
clubs, he's not going to move anywhere. So
yeah,
that sort of that's the first concern, right? With someone like Mourinho. Um, but same for a lot of other coaches. It does look like they've exhausted their time at the big clubs where you can't move to another club because of the rivalry, because of previous experience with other managers
yeah,
or other club owners. So people are hesitant to hire you. But beyond that, even some of the very good coaches, like someone like Ancelotti, after when he was started with a move away from Real Madrid, the next job they were putting out for him was um, Brazil national team.
yeah. Brazil
Someone,
national team.
yeah, someone like Klopp. It's not quite clear if he returns back to coaching where he'll go.
Yeah,
Someone like Tuchel still out of job. Poch, it's not quite clear where exactly where he'll go. So
yeah,
what's happening? This is what's happening, and I want to start by using the Chelsea situation, right? Because I think it's one of the
yeah,
clearest that's making people alarmed about this
yeah,
trend. So what used to happen was that previously, when you have owners coming, so like the Abramovich era, you have
yeah,
owners coming, they have a lot of money and they say, okay, look, uh, who can create a team for me and make me win? So you bring in a
yeah,
manager who has absolute control over everything. And what he does is says, I need this players, I need that players, I need that players. They go out, they go and sign the players. And previously, the role of these managers even included as much as liaising with the scouting teams to
yeah,
negotiate and talk to the players and things like that. Over time, people realize that no, you give managers the chance to buy players, and they were getting dragged into these negotiations, meetings, and it's not healthy or good for anyone. So there needed to be a clear delineation between the business and the football. So
Yeah.
that's the era of that started the era of sporting directors and technical
Directors.
directors,
Yeah.
and just business directors in general, where you have CEOs, things like that, who are now managing the money side of things and entering into
Yeah.
negotiations. So now it was about the coaches making these suggestions and then them going out to go and pick them. But what the Leipzig model, the Red Bull model, and a couple of models, like for example in Brighton, so on and so forth, are
Yeah.
beginning to take is an extra step with this. Because you remember the all the troubles that came with Man United and the talks around why their business
Yeah.
owner had relatively no knowledge of football.
Yeah.
So he was now given powers to buy players, things like that, when he had no knowledge of football. So for him, he was buying as cheap as possible and making sure that money was not left on the table. But that was hurting the sporting performance. So you had a coach who was just left with all of the sporting responsibilities and a business side that just didn't understand how to do it. So the role of these sporting directors, and like that's the modern day sporting director who comes in with
Yeah.
the technical knowledge, philosophical, technical knowledge of football, but then able to combine it with business. And they are now able to craft a brand of football and a brand image for these clubs that can and set what will be the strategic vision or tone for the clubs. And what a lot of
Yeah.
clubs are suffering from, and I want to mention some examples. Look at a team like Everton, where they've
Yeah.
consistently changed coaches for a couple of years now. You think of teams like Nottingham Forest, even
Yeah.
Aston Villa so quite recently. What happens is
Yeah.
you bring in a coach, he has a particular style of football, and he buys the players that suit his style of football. So he says, "Give me A, B, C, D." You buy it for him. 5 months, the football doesn't work. You kick him out. Another coach comes and he says, "I want to play
I
this
need a
way."
new
So
set of players.
I need a new set of players. So by 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or even 10 years, you have a squad that is not quite clear
What they want to
they
do.
what they want to do, what their abilities are. There are some of the players that can suit counter-attacking football, but won't suit possession style football. So managers have to compromise. So you see Ashley Young is playing right back and things like that. And some of these guys also. And another thing also that was considered that was affected in this way was squad value, because now you had a lot of players who were now brought in because he can do the job for the coach. And when you bring in a coach like that, you want someone who will immediately adapt to do the job. And because of that, we'll pay anything to get him. You put him on a contract, and contract value increases over time, but the players' real value
Value
or
decreases.
the outputs they can give to you decreases because they are growing in age, because the profile of the next coach doesn't really match and everything. So you have players like Ozil, Aubameyang, who were on massive, massive contracts, but becoming less and less important to the team or to the new
Yeah.
managers or how they wanted to play. So when you come in as a new manager, you are forced to use them, and
Yeah.
if it doesn't fit or there's a rift, it means that the whole structure is broken down. So you had players who think about how much Ronaldo was sold when he was leaving Real Madrid. He was the best player in the
Yeah.
world, but I think it was for a paltry sum. Even the
Yeah.
move to United, things like that, because his commercial value, not commercial value, but like his the
Even
transactional
West
value.
Office's move to United and then his move out of United. Like,
Yes, almost for free, almost for free, because the your value goes down over time. But what clubs like Chelsea, Brighton, and Co have been able to identify is that they can have an upside on squad value and grow the squad to a point where you are only able to sell them at their prime, where they can command the highest fees. So
okay.
Brighton, for example, decided to, and even Real Madrid to a certain extent, decided to build pipelines in places like South America, where they are buying the best of the best talent whilst they were still very,
Yeah.
very young. Brighton, for example, uses a data approach. So what, and I'm coming down to what now the new football is. What they've
Yeah.
now decided to do is you now want to pick sporting directors who have good football knowledge combine it with good technical knowledge and good business knowledge to draw up a
Yeah.
strategic long-term vision of the club's brand, how the club wants to play, or the football philosophy that they buy into, the kind of approach that they want to have within games, plan everything down to the minutest detail, and then now
Yeah.
organize all the elements that needs to make it happen. So Chelsea, for example, is saying that we want to pursue what do you call it, a more possession based, attacking, fluid attacking kind of football. It's now
Yeah.
what kind of players do we need to make sure they succeed? So we need to buy wingers who are fast. So they are in
Yeah.
the markets chasing all the wingers, whatever. We need DMs who can do so and so job. So they are in the market for those prospects and they'll pay any amount of money. So the people who are required to play that system, they are looking for the best of them in every position and they are going ahead to go and buy them. Then those who don't fit it, they want to sell. Those who weren't groomed up
Yeah.
to that point, they want to sell. Another thing they also do is they focus on the academy. So not just in recruitment, but the academy. So you have
Yeah.
uh, teams like Brighton, whose academy is training them to play one kind of football. Man
Yeah.
City same, and their feeder clubs, they create feeder clubs where the
Yeah.
same kind of football is or the same kind of philosophy is used over there. So when we have a player
Yeah.
come up from the academy who was training this kind of football, we send him to our parent club because in the current system,
Yeah.
when you send a player on loan, he's under a different regime. But this time we send him on
Yeah.
loan to a club which plays our kind of football. Then they
Yeah.
learn, they can quickly integrate back into the first team when they are doing well. And if there's no
Yeah.
space in the first team, we can quickly sell them for a much higher price. So the combination of all of this then means that you can no longer bring a manager who has a big personality, who wants to dictate how he wants to play and wants results for himself. Because these
Yeah.
managers like Mourinho, Tuchel, the results are tied to themselves. So they are given a
Yeah.
lot of say in terms of their personality and how much they impose their identity on the team. We don't need managers with their own identity. We need managers now who have a certain identity and philosophy that we want, and we tell them the kind of football that we want to play. So DS is to make sure that they work with the tools that they have to play that kind of football.
Yeah.
And that is where the direction of football is going to. Another thing also is that, and especially if you look at the Chelsea model, and even Brighton does this to a degree, the kind of contracts they put these players on means that you can have these players play for you for a very long time and sell them, right? So, for example, Kopama is 21 when he signed, given a 7 years contract. He develops, and already they have graphs to tell that he has the qualities to develop into this kind of player. He gives you the best outputs. In 7 years, he wouldn't want to stay. So by
Yeah.
28, he's literally at his prime. And you
Yeah.
can literally sell him for the kind of value that you want. And even if you don't sell him, you know that when he's leaving, he has given you
Yeah.
the best years of his life. In that way, the squad value at the beginning now is very small, but would only grow. So that's the new direction that football is taking. That's why managers like these are becoming obsolete because we no longer need your personality, we no longer need your style, we no longer need your input. We have a way we want to play. We just need you to come in there to fill those shoes. So the manager is now a cog in the system instead of being the system itself.
I mean, that's a really in depth explanation. And to be fair, it sort of covers both the trend, but also the structure itself, what it's been evolving, and probably also what I would call trying to get the best out of the two systems in terms of the sport and the business aspects of football that are always rubbing shoulders and trying to compete with each other. Because with football, it's always difficult trying to manage. I think one of the most successful clubs, and for the reason why they are so, Real Madrid, is because they've been able to manage so well the business side and also the football aspect of things. With the likes of Barcelona struggling with the business, even when they've had exceptional footballing capabilities as well. So, like you're saying, clubs trying to get to that what do you call it, that point where they have a balance between those two systems is really, really important. Just a little bit of specifics. We are told that, or we've all read that for the likes of Chelsea, the reason why things broke down between Pochettino and the club management is obviously because Poch wanted to have much more say in player transfers, player profiling, and he basically wanted more power in the club, which he was denied, and that's the reason why things broke down. Look at Tuchel, the fact that Bayern went round and round came back to him. And one of the key things that broke down that relationship between Tuchel and Bayern is because they needed Tuchel wanted to have more say in players that he wanted to sign, but also players that he wanted to leave as well. And Bayern denied that request. That's how come negotiations broke down. Do you think also that this new evolution, just before we go on to a few clubs, do you think this new evolution is demanding yes men of managers?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think what, in a way, that's what it feels like. In a way, we
Yeah.
need people who will do as they are told. But I don't think it's true that the manager's autonomy is taken in all instances. It's
Okay.
this way. Some of the managers like Tuchel look at their squad and say, "This is the kind of football that I want to play in order to get me the results."
Yeah.
They look at the squad, they look at the league, they look at the competition. So we all know they have philosophies, but they
Yeah.
eventually decide how they want to play the sporting decision. And for them, it's fair that they have the sporting decision. But this is calling for them to share responsibilities on the sporting decision. So I don't think it's about having yes men. It's about having people who would be humble enough to be able to share their responsibility or share the power or share their ideas. And I think that's where
Yeah.
some of these managers disagree because at the end of the day, the problem that Poch, for example, had was that he was being criticized for the results, but he's not the
He
one
was in
absolutely.
control. Yeah.
Yes, you see, and he now went to the board and said, "Look, I want to do this work, and I think there's potential to do it this way, but I want to be able to get some kind of players. I want to be able to tweak my squad this way. I want to be able to say that don't sell this player." And they were like, "No, you won't have absolute power. We will decide." And it's like, if where at what point do you take responsibility? Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if I don't perform, you will sack me, and that's
Yeah.
why the new coaches, for example, who are coming are getting longer contracts because
Yeah.
it's not just about you. You are just working within a framework, right? They decide
Yeah.
that we want to play this kind of football. Can you give it to us? So even with
Yeah.
transfers, they already know the profile of players to buy, who is there. So you don't go and say, "I don't need this player, throw him away." It'll be like, no, you need to
Yeah.
work with him. And this new model of football also changes the way you look at players. Players are not looked at as they are seen as more as assets to the club.
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
like we need you for a specific purpose. After that, we're done. No, we are
Yeah.
seen as
Sell on
in terms of,
value. Yeah.
yes, we have a developmental plan. So you hear a lot of talk about projects. So there's a developmental plan for you. We see you that per your stats and analysis, you can become a very good midfielder instead of a winger. So we are going to
Yeah.
play aggressively till you get to that point. So sell them a vision for their personal development. So you cannot come there and say, "I want to work with this guy." So
Yeah.
it's not a case of yes men. I think it's a case of collaborating, but in a way, you need to sort of just also listen to what they have to tell you and work with what they give you.
Yeah, I mean, just a few instances here, and then we can try and end this conversation as well nearing the end. You look at Pochettino, for instance. I think there was one interview where he was asked about a particular player in Chelsea's squad, and he said, "Who?" He asked who like twice because he couldn't even tell that player was on the squad. Like
Yes.
back in the day, managers could list every single player because, like you say, manager power is huge,
Yeah.
and they determine. And people have said like the word manager is now being gradually changed to coach
Coach.
because you are specifically needed for the coaching aspect of it, not like managing the club itself, because now there are delineations in the departments of football and there's much more structured approach. And like with news coming in from Manchester United, for instance, regardless of who they maintain, there are certain rules that are being touted as the new hierarchy putting out that like they determine signings. So at best, the manager tells them I need a defender. They profile, determine three shortlists, and send it to the manager to for that manager to determine who is the ultimate. But the manager doesn't get to determine I want this player or I want that player and I want to go and buy that player. They are not signing anyone over the age of 25. So every single signing has to be under 25, which fits into exactly what you are saying as treating players as assets that you want to sign them and then groom them into their prime for them to have much higher sell on values as well. And literally just keeping the manager out of a lot of the day to day stuff and keeping them on the coaching aspect of things. And the manager has to be young and all that. So you look at that trend and those requirements fits exactly into the trend that you just spoke about.
Yeah, I just one more thing to add. I think the reason for this has been that the clubs are beginning to think more in the long term. Managers
Yeah.
come and if you
And
have a
go.
sporting
Yeah.
director whose long term interest is tied to the club, you can create a more long term strategic vision
Yeah.
and be much more efficient. Someone who is staying is on the company books, who is staying for longer, won't feel the loyalty to move to another club the next day.
Yeah. I mean, even with Liverpool and Klopp, I think the sporting director, I've forgotten his name, left
Was it Michael
because
Edwards?
yeah, Michael Edwards had to leave because Klopp, obviously, with his status within Liverpool, was gaining much and much more power. With Klopp's decision to resign, it didn't take long. He re-signed a contract. He's now back at the helms of affairs, trying to restructure again. And if you look at Anslot, for instance, and the fact that they've signed him, also somebody who has worked at Feyenoord with a similar structure, because I think this club structure is very popular in the Netherlands as well, with the likes of Ajax, Feyenoord having similar
Yeah.
structures. And they identified him clearly to fit that specific purpose. And I don't think he's coming in, and that's why you look at the managers that are coming in. We don't see them having big personalities. We don't see them having extremely long years of experience. But that's also because they don't need them to be doing the signings. They don't need them to be making the big calls at the club. They need them to be executing on the coaching side of the job and on the pitch and playing the football. So all they need to see is a style of football and an identity that they like to be able to fit the kind of jobs that they are doing. How much of a shock was it for you to hear that Vincent Kompany is the new Bayern Munich coach?
Oh my God. You know, I was saying on Twitter that it feels like an episode of Get Out, the movie Get Out.
Someone said
Because
the god of company stepping for me.
no, so there's been a lot of talk about failing upwards. In company's
Yeah,
case, I think if this was last year or if this was after his time in Anderlecht, I
yeah.
would say so. But
I,
managing a
I
club like
actually don't think it's feeling upwards per se. I think if this was even Bendy when he qualified them into the champions into the Premier League, I don't think anybody would be surprised that this move had happened. Right?
yes, yes, I think it's a case of looking at a club like Bayern. The expectation would be to sign someone who just has a bit of experience, given that they've had trouble trying to sign some of these young coaches and they've just had trouble integrating them
Yeah,
into the squad and everything. But I think they are thinking in the right way because Bayern has always been the club. Bayern has operated this model for so long. They
yeah,
just
for
a
so long
club have
actually.
a philosophy of playing,
Yeah,
and they just people there. So you come in and you as a coach just try and play. So they say, "Can you play this football?" You say yes. They give you the players to play, and they have trusted people or trusted players who deliver that style. And you just need to go there
yeah,
and motivate to go and play. So so I was surprised, but I also think that it's well deserved. Like Company is a really, really good coach.
yeah,
Obviously, he still has a lot of experience to pick up, and I think working with a squad like this might become a bit because of the age. But I think Bayern
yeah.
progressively are trying to move to a point where they don't have to rely on.
Have,
They're trying to phase out
yeah,
some of these players and everything. So yeah,
yeah.
I think you'll succeed.
It is true. I also think like he qualified Bendy with record points from the championship into the Premier
Yeah,
League. So obviously, like he's an outstanding manager, and I think one of the reasons why they stuck with him or they even went for him. If you look at Bendy, for instance, he kept a playing identity, even though they were struggling. It was more of the tools to execute rather than the manager's tactical know-how. And so if you look at Bayern Munich, where he would likely have the tools to execute, I think if he gets all he needs to do now is to get his tactics and his coaching right, and will most likely be one of the coaches, one of the good coaches of the future as well. Just two more managers to go through. Maresca, obviously yet to be announced officially by Chelsea, but seems to be the one that's leading to be the next Chelsea coach, the man for the job, or you think it's another risk?
It's very difficult. I think, in light of all the explanations I've given, it makes sense
Yeah,
to employ someone like Maresca, because
from the Pep school as well.
yeah, he's literally all about playing that style, with the style
Yeah,
which they now say they want to play, and it's from the Pep school. Obviously, like Pep coming into this again, because now it looks like they need someone like Pep, who,
yeah,
because Pep who integrated himself into the city structure. People thought he had a lot of power, but he really
yeah,
was not the one personally signing these players. He really doesn't also say a lot in terms of whether they go or they stay.
yeah,
He can say, like, he has a personal relationship, which I think obviously he uses in that. So it's very difficult. They've given him a 6 year contract virtually,
yeah,
which is to say that this fits what we've been trying to do. This is finally the man. Like, everything we've been working on has been to this point. I think
see,
he's likely to succeed, given that the squad itself has been grown to a point. Like, if this was last year, I think it would be a disaster. But I think what Poch has
okay,
done is stabilize the squad, increase the confidence of some of these players, got them playing well. Some of them look like proper players now. First it was very
yeah,
bad. So this is going to help. Without that, I think he might have struggled in terms of adapting to the
yeah,
players, like improving them while still implementing his playing style. Because if
yeah,
they don't have the technique and the style to play your way, you will struggle. You will start asking for new players, and then they are going to say
yeah.
these players are designed to play the style. So deal with it.
I get you. I mean, he did very good with Manchester City's B team, winning the league with them. He's gone to Leicester City, brought them back into the Premier League. Obviously, his style of play is very impressive as well. And I think he could be successful. The only red flags have been, yeah, he's not probably similar to the theories we had around Potter. But then with what you've just said, probably at the time when Potter took over the helm of affairs, the squad wasn't at the level of development that Maresca is getting now. So hopefully it would work out. Let's see. I mean, the against people would be waiting to see the negative news as well.
I mean,
But
so in light, just one quick, in light of that,
yeah,
you would like to think the Potter appointment made sense, because the whole thing with Potter was we needed him to come in for a transitionary period whilst we are doing the clear out. He's getting to know
yeah,
the squad. Obviously, he needed to balance that with results, because
yeah,
um, good players in there. So that's why everything was a mess. Because do I wait till the project starts, or I'm just here and you realize, yeah, it
yeah,
was the
yeah,
wrong step. I personally do think another year of stability would have done for the squad, but let's see how
yeah.
it goes.
I actually think the Poch appointment at the time they appointed Potter would have been better to give him that time till now and let Poch go and bring in a young manager who would be able to do the things that they want to
Yeah.
do. But yeah, I mean, things have happened. Let's see how things will go. One final hot question though. You think Manchester United should keep Eric Ten Hag?
Today you're on fire. Like, I in pure terms of what he does on the pitch, I think they should keep him. He's
Okay.
excellent with young players. It was seen in Ajax. It
Yeah.
is seen now. It's funny because I said this thing on the podcast the other time, that he is quite clear that he's good with younger players than older
Than
established
the
players,
older
because
ones. Yeah.
he's a disciplinarian. He wants you to obey his every word. He like, and of course, if you do listen to him, you'll play well. He'll play you,
Yeah.
things like. So obviously that clashes with people who already have established places in the team, have some ego, things like that. But he is working for the young players, and now they have a Ahmad, Ganacho, Kobe Menu, Dalo. They are all playing very very
Yeah.
well. So in light
Rasmus
of this,
Højlund as well.
exactly, in light of this, if they are going towards a trajectory of we're going to sign younger players, then this is the guy you need. The only
Yeah.
The second thing about him is that he's bad with transfers. At Manchester
Yeah,
United, he's had to do his own transfers, like in terms of player choices and everything. And it's quite clear that he's not very good at talent ID. He's not very good at
yeah,
those relationships, things, creating those relationships and creating like the correct business plan. So all the players he signed for me, useless signings, Anthony, Mount,
yeah,
Casemiro. It wasn't quite clear that's what he needed. So if you are going by the new model where it's like sporting directors are doing the signings for you, sign young prospects, then I think he's the fantastic man for the job. But obviously, someone
yeah,
is going to look at the results which they've had now and say that then you are not the right man for the job. And another thing also is that if he still remains, he'll still need a season of stability where you are letting go of
yeah.
the old and creating this transition. And he's going to run into the Porter problem where people expect you to have results whilst this transition is still happening. I think that's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, for Eric Ten Hag, let's not kid ourselves. He came from a very structured club in Ajax, where
Yeah.
talent wasn't a problem. They have a very vibrant academy. They had a solid structure that was giving him the players that he needed. Into a system where he had to be coach, sporting director, recruitment head, dictator of all lords and commands in Manchester United. And obviously, that was something he was going to struggle with because he didn't even come from a club where he had to do that, therefore had built the connections or the experience to execute that kind of responsibility. And now he found himself in one of the biggest clubs in the world where he had to do that with all eyes on him. That's why you realize that almost every signing he had to rely on people he had experience with before. Amrabat, Verkost, Anthony, the only ones outside of the blue is Casemiro and Mount. Almost every other player that he signed, yeah, people that he has experience with before, and it's been really, really hard trying to get him to do that. So, like you're saying, I think with a new structure coming in, it would be sensible to give him the chance because I think if he was at Ajax up until now, he would probably be the first name up the sheet if they are looking for managers. But also, I think that like he has 1 year to go. I think worst case scenario, United from a financial point of view can just keep him and run out his contract. And if you don't want to extend it, he just walks away. Because now breaking up the contract, you would have a financial responsibility to him. You'd also have a financial responsibility to whatever new manager that you are signing. And you need to free up money to be signing up players at this point in time. I don't think United are in the most financially safe position to be making wasteful financial decisions such as this, especially when there is no obvious manager out there. Like the names that have been touted are Thomas Tuchel, who wouldn't want to work under a strict system as at the one you are dictating. The likes of Gareth Southgate, who you cannot tell because he's had some of the best England squads you've seen in decades, and he's not doing anything meaningful with them. And so you really cannot tell whether you come and give him the
They were
squad
going
at
for the
United and
English
he's going to
manager.
perform magic. Right? You
Uh,
said?
Mac- they were going for Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, but he's also extended his contract. So he's obviously not coming there now. And so you look at the options, and it clearly doesn't seem like any of these options are being fruitful now. So obviously, like you said, I think that probably the most sensible thing would be to keep him. But let's see what United do. He probably had his best game of the season, probably even of his managerial career against Pep Guardiola in the FA Cup final. But yeah,
The drunk champions.
those. I mean, to be fair, Pep just had a terrible setup, and even the starting lineup. When I saw that starting lineup, I was like, why is he
He didn't
disrespecting
take
the
it
United team?
seriously at
Or
all.
yeah, he didn't take it seriously at all, at all, at all. But
At
yeah,
all. If he
it's
had
been a
gone,
good
I think
episode.
they did the same thing with Chelsea in the semi-final. Only
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
make referee decisions go for them anyway, they're going to
yeah.
lose. A story for another day.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a really, really good episode talking about the evolution of football, trying to merge the commercial aspect in terms of business and the footballing aspect. Clubs on their way to find the balance, the ultimate destination that they've come to, and why it's putting old egotistic managers out of instant jobs and creating immediate jobs for new, inexperienced managers at the highest levels of football. This has been the Beer Parlor with myself and Erasmus. Thanks for listening. Leave your comments in the comment section as to this evolution of football, the likes of the managers that you've seen, Kompany, Maresca, Ten Hag. What do you think the future would look like? And Slot as well as Liverpool. Do you think that these managers are going to be succeeding? Let us know your thoughts, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.